The opinions expressed on the following audio program are solely those of the host and the guests. Burner Podcast is an independently produced, not-for-profit show and is not associated with the Burning Man organization or its subsidiaries. The views expressed are not representative of the entire Burning Man community and are presented here for entertainment purposes only. In short, calm the fuck down. It's just a podcast.
All right, it's episode number 66, and it is 354 days till the man burns as of this recording. Another one for the books. I wonder if that's going to be one of those phrases that won't make sense someday, like in the near future. Like you'll say it, and then some snot-nosed teenager is going to say, "What are books? I don't know what books are." It's the first show back after Burning Man 2017, and we're going to huge try to give you a proper post-Burning Man episode, but there's just so much to cover. We couldn't possibly do it justice. But I guess, in a way, we'll be doing a post-Burning Man review, whether we like it or not. A post-Burning Man review every first and third Wednesday of the month, all the way until Burning Man 2018. Because that's basically what this show kind of is. This burn, for me personally, was all about professional clarity. Clarity about the future of Burner Podcast, the next steps in multiple other projects that I'm working on, how I want to keep paying my rent in this coming year. So that's been sort of what this burn was all about for me. This was also the first year since starting this show, 2.5 years ago, something like that, 3 years ago. Has it been 3 years? God, I have like no sense of time. Anyway, it's the first time since starting this show that I had multiple people on Playa recognize me based on my voice alone. So I don't know, from years of podcasting and hosting shows and doing interviews and stuff in a variety of different places, I've had experiences where people knew me when they saw my name or if they saw me in an event. But Burning Man 2017 was the first time since I've started this show where people heard my voice and recognized me before even seeing my face or seeing me in person or hearing my name. That was a lot of fun. I'm not going to lie to you. That was like such a kick. That was a really new experience. And one of those people was the wonderful Serena from Portland. I kind of cyberstalked you to figure out your name. And it was, of all places, by the way, Serena noticed me at Sonya Sophia's EFT workshop, whom you'll remember as our guest on this very last episode of Burner Podcast, this previous episode that went up before the burn. I was laying on my back and trying not to hate life after a very, very long night while talking to a friend at Sonya Sophia's workshop, waiting for it to start. And Serena notices my voice, and it gets better. She was at the workshop specifically because she'd heard about it on this show. So that was a super cool experience. It was just like this quick little moment, but it definitely was a lot of fun. And it's these awesome little moments that make Burning Man, Burning Man. And there's a reason I tell this story, by the way, because speaking of Sonya, this being our first episode back, some of you may still be dealing with some post-burn blues. One day we're going to do like a full episode on that very subject. But if you're having some challenges getting back into the default world, one of the many resources out there for you is Sonya's Emotional Freedom Technique videos. You can visit her website at sonyasophia.us. Sophia is spelled Sophia. And as a little bonus treat, all the way at the end of this episode, we're going to have a 10 to 15 minute-ish audio session with Sonya. So you can stay tuned after the final credits roll for that little bonus that she sent over to us from Austin. Another resource is our guest on today's episode, actually. John Halcyon is back to talk Burning Man 2017 with me. If you visit Halcyon's YouTube channel, he's got some great talks about decompression and self-care, tons of great self-care content. There's a reason John Halcyon is John fucking Halcyon. And funny enough, the first time I posted a selfie with John a couple of years ago, a high school friend messaged me out of the blue gushing. By the way, this person isn't even a burner, this person that messaged me. She was so excited and was telling me about how whenever she feels down, she tunes into Halcyon's YouTube channel for inspiration. So his shit's pretty universal, I guess. You don't have to just be a burner to get it. It applies to everybody. And I love hearing stuff like that. But before we get into today's show, there is a couple of other things I wanted to hit real quick. Burners Without Borders is on the ground in Texas and Florida. As you know, I camped with Burners Without Borders this year, and it was pretty amazing to watch this camp working and reacting immediately to the hurricanes that hit Texas and Florida. Definitely quite inspirational. I'm going to read the statement real quick that Breedlove distributed to everyone. He is the program manager for Burners Without Borders, and he was also my camp lead this year. Breedlove writes, just like with Hurricane Katrina 12 years ago, which led to the founding of Burners Without Borders, the response to Hurricane Harvey during Burning Man was immediate, chaotic, and almost outpaced the ability to organize it. The surge to responses from the Burning Man community is so spontaneous, diverse, and widespread, it's hard to keep track of it all. Burners Without Borders has 4 active groups in Texas, all working together as well as facilitating their own projects. The largest effort is being put into a support camp, that's in kind of quotes, in Aranza Pass, I don't know how to pronounce that, to 1, give out donations to residents, 2, offer mental health support, sanctuary team music and cleanup help, 3, offer food and porta potties, 4, provide comfort and supplies to those in need following the hurricane and flooding. To volunteer, donate, or learn more about BWB, visit burnerswithoutborders.org. So, of course, like that is mentioning Texas specifically, but the same thing is happening in Florida. Go to burnerswithoutborders.org. There's tons of information on there, and they can use your support. If you want to get out there and help, if you want to send some money in, if you just want to learn more, go over there and learn more about how fucking badass our community is. So, okay, let's get into today's episode. As stated earlier, Halcyon is back on to talk Burning Man 2017. As you remember last year, I don't know if you guys tuned into that episode, we had Halcyon on as well as a couple of other guests. There was Fred Heald and Jake Holler. And it was a great roundtable. This year, you know, it just ended up being me and John, and my intuition kind of told me, you know, like, just go ahead, just you two do it. And it really worked out beautifully. I had a wonderful time recording this conversation. The first 30 minutes is kind of like general Burning Man talk. John and I hadn't seen each other in a while, so I think we got really excited about talking about some of the stuff that's been on our minds about the community as a whole. We chat about hugging consent. Then I get to talk about photography for a bit, because for those of you who don't know, I am a photographer, so consent and photography is an issue near and dear to me as an artist. The more casual part of the chat, where we're kind of talking about more general Burning Man stuff, is probably the first 45 minutes or so. And then we are going to talk about John having just left the Oregon Eclipse Festival and what that experience was like for him, and for I'm sure many of you listeners who attended that festival before coming out to Burning Man. I'm assuming for those of you who did that combination. But you know, we do talk about a lot of stuff. We catch up about a lot of things. I think, yeah, it's about after like the 45-minute or so mark is when we start to get more into Burning Man 2017 specifics. And that part of the conversation does begin with the theme Radical Ritual, where we talk about Burning Man and spirituality and the R word that freaks a lot of people out, religion. We're going to chat about that a little bit. And then after all that is done, about an hour in, is we're going to get into some other art projects and some of our own experiences out there. So the death, of course, was on so many people's minds. I know it's on yours, and I wanted to kind of get that subject out in the open right away. So we do talk about that fairly quickly. And beyond the tragedy, we spend the rest of the show exploring the beauty, the magic, and the art at Black Rock City, as well as some of the frustrations and missteps that we as a community experienced this year. Yeah. We bring up the damn bikes that everybody's posting about, the 5,000 bikes. Okay, so let's bring in Halcyon, and don't forget to hang back after the end credits for that EFT session with Sonya Sophia. Today's episode is anticlimactically entitled The Post-Burning Man 2017 Chat with Halcyon. I go by Mr. Arash, even though nobody calls me Mr. Welcome to Burner Podcast.
On the first part of the journey, I was looking at all the life. There were plants and birds and rocks and things. There was sand and hills and rain. The first thing I met was the flowers above and the sky with no clouds. The heat was hot and the ground was dry, but the air was full of sound. I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. It felt good to be out of the rain. In the desert, you can't remember your name, 'cause there ain't no one for to give you no name.
Like a very silly example. That's one of the things that I make it a point to like write a lot in my journal about the different opportunities that I've had, like the different ways that things are lining up. And like just even one of those things, I'll even write about my shitty metabolism. I'm like, it's one of the things that I've experienced is that if I didn't have the Afshar metabolism, that like we look at a piece of bread from across the room and gain 10 pounds. If I didn't have that, and I feel like that was almost the universe's way of putting me in a corner and forcing me to pay attention to what I'm eating, because one of the many things that has brought me to where I'm at currently in my life, like where I have this like focus and I feel amazing all the time and I have high productivity, is that I've learned to put the right kind of energy into my system.
Right.
You know, like quitting sugar, not adding extra salt to things, like just generally eating healthy, removing like the most of the red meats. And I'm moving towards being vegan, but I'm not quite there yet. But just even like, I probably, knowing me, would not have paid attention to that.
Right. If you didn't have the obstacle,
Yeah.
you would not have been steered towards the path you're supposed to be on.
Right. I'm just kind of turning up some of the input here. Say some stuff.
So I had a super powerful recognition of this this year, where I have come to peace. Well, I take that back. I've been working on come to peace with my poor memory.
Okay.
And I'm often I'll have trouble remembering people that I've met. Of course, you know, at the burn, people are like, "Oh, I met you at the burn." I'm like, sorry, but and I always kind of struggle.
Well, that's tough. You also know a fuck ton of people.
and you know, and we meet in the middle of the night, and my eyes are blurry, and like, "Oh, were you the one with dust on you?"
Yeah.
Like,
And you're wearing like a crazy outfit and a mask. Your hair is a different color.
Right.
I feel like we can be forgiven a little bit.
I think so too. But sometimes people are really upset. In fact, at a burn event, like at a couple years ago, in San Diego, a woman walked up to me and she said, "Hi," and I go, "Hi, I'm Halcyon," and she goes, "We've met 3 times." I'm like, "I'm so sorry." And then she reaches in for a kiss.
Yeah.
Bites my lip till I'm bleeding, and goes, "You won't forget me now." I'm like, "What?" We were both drinking. I'm like, the first thing I did was like turned away. I'm like, I am doing my best to forget you. Like, I can encourage that behavior.
No, that's not acceptable.
But I was going to say that. So I had this experience this year where I was dealing with some of my guilt of bad memory, and then was going back reading over things that I had written online like a decade ago,
Right.
and realized that the reason why I started putting stories and pictures online in the first place, almost 20 years ago, was because I kept forgetting these adventures I was having. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start recording these things even before anyone else was online. Like I'm going to journal. Before it was called blogging, I'm going to blog. And the reason I'm doing this is because as a recalibration to deal with my bad memory. So this thing that I'd had all this guilt of that I thought was a problem, something was wrong with me, was the very thing that steered me on the path to become the person that I am today. Like, absolutely. And I'm like, suddenly like I saw the whole past and this thing that was this negative washed over me as exactly what I needed to be who I am.
Yeah. Everything we are as adults, like we're all a product of our childhood traumas. All these shortcomings that we had, all these pains, like we found ways to deal with them. And that's like one of the things I tongue-in-cheek jokingly will talk to parents about is, listen, you're going to fuck up your kids no matter what you do.
Totally.
No matter what you do, you're going to fuck them up. Just hope that you at least instill in them the thought system that doesn't spend the rest of their lives blaming you for all their horrible, shortcomings and sees it as like opportunities. That's the only thing I think that you can do.
Amen. And I think that really ties into the burn and the whole idea of intentionally going to this inhospitable, very challenging environment, intentionally creating these projects that are insane. Like, okay, let's not just survive in the desert. Let's find a way to make sushi. Yeah. Let's not just make a structure. Let's find a way to make it gorgeous. Let's not just, let's be fabulous while we do it. Like why do you create these incredible obstacles? Because life is not about trying to avoid obstacles. Life is about trying to find awesome obstacles. And then when you find your way through them, you realize at the other side, I'm more than I thought I was.
Yeah.
And the burn in general, I think, is one of the reasons why it's so powerful is because it is this overt example of this. Life, it's easy to fall into that trap of thinking, I'm a victim because these things are happening to me. But when we choose the burn and we choose all these obstacles, it's this very kind of black and white example of what I think the purpose of life is to find awesome adventures.
Right. And thankfully we are in a position of privilege where we can see it that way. Like, and part of that comes with being at the top of Maslow's pyramid.
Amen. Very true. Acknowledged.
We've got that. Yes. I am so fucking blessed. I know that you're incredibly grateful for it. We talk about this openly, and there's always going to be that percentage of people out there that will hear stories like this and their response is like, oh yeah, well, what about the poor starving kid? Is he supposed to see opportunity in that? And like, I get that they didn't have the same privilege that we did. But at the same time, it doesn't make any sense for like the rest of us to continue punishing ourselves because somebody else, unfortunately, did not have access to the same experiences that we did.
Absolutely. I don't think anybody, I think Jacob Glass, I heard him say this, like, nobody who is hungry is relieved of their suffering because you feel guilty about your blessings. On the contrary, I think that if you can really sink into and feel your blessings, you can find the strength and the power to find a way to be of service in the world from a place of strength and power instead of a negative reaction of guilt and trying to force suffering. And I don't think that's a healthy place to try to heal the world.
Well, perfect example of it is what you do with Hug Nation. And the homeless outreach programs that you have cultivated over time, that you've been such a big... you being in a position of, for lack of a better description, privilege, having access to the Burning Man community and building this community and having this network was exactly what gave you all the tools that you needed to start this other thing that's all about helping people that... I mean, they're not going to like give you podcast views, that was a part of it.
So many years ago when I started doing Hug Nation, and I also had a site called cockybastard.com, and I was all about self-love, and I really had this belief that the path of self-discovery and the path of working out your own shit is the way to finding how to be of service in the world. Mm-hmm. And I got a bunch of attacks from people who would say, like, you think you're trying to do good, you're just hugging people. Why don't you do something that matters? Why don't you, go work in a food kitchen? Why don't you? And I was like, I hear what you're saying, but I have this faith that if I get in alignment, then I will find a higher truth to be of service to. And without meaning to, a decade later, I'm like, holy crap. That's what happened. I didn't go out trying to create a homeless charity. I went out trying to find a way, how can I be more in alignment with my truth, which is finding joy in gifting. And then just started going downtown and then started telling people, and people started showing up. Before I know it, hundreds of people are volunteering to help be of service, not out of guilt, not out of like, oh, poor them, but out of how can we be in our highest joy? And I truly believe, and after doing this now for enough years, and is that I believe that when we align with our truth, we have no choice but to be of service, and then we fill in the need that the world needs, that we're wired for.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so I camped with Burners Without Borders this year, and
Awesome.
It was a really amazing experience to be able to see it from firsthand. And also, Hurricane Harvey hit right when the burn started, and then Irma towards the end. So I was watching these amazing people in action the whole week. And my favorite story from this week was, I believe the individual's name was Patrick. He came and he spoke at the Burners Without Borders speaker series briefly when Peter was kind of hosting it. And he was telling us that the first people that hit the ground in these situations are the insurance adjusters.
No way.
Right? Because the first people that need to hit the ground in disaster situations is the people that are worried about where's the money going. And so Burners Without Borders, for the listeners who are not immediately familiar, they're basically the disaster relief and community activation wing of Burning Man. It started when Hurricane Katrina hit, and Burners Without Borders was basically a bunch of burners headed out and helped rebuild chunks of the city and got involved in projects. So this year, anyway, what happened this year is that the insurance adjusters get there at Hurricane Harvey as soon as it hits Texas, and basically, I think, was it what city was it that's under? I'm not sure where it really got hit, but there's basically a giant lake in the middle of Texas where it didn't used to be. And the adjusters are out there and they stumble across the BWB camp.
Wow.
They already have shade structure set up. They already have a command center. They're already I think they may have been just having a coffee or beer break or something.
Whoa.
And they're like, how the fuck did you guys already set up? You guys are the first people on the ground out here. And literally, before Red Cross, before any other organization, the insurance adjusters had come and told them that BWB, the burners, were the first people out there ready to start building, already set up camp, all this stuff. And a big chunk of the reason that exists, that BWB culture exists, is because Burning Man is a community where we've made building fun. People look forward to building. It's not just I'm dragging my feet trying to do this. And because we've associated this positive... we've positively reinforced the fun of building,
right?
That it was easy to develop that kind of culture. So BWB's out there, they've set up camp, more burners are going after the burn, they're going to have their decom out there.
Well, that's so, and it's about the duocracy.
Yeah.
You see, there's a crack in the system. So do I have a way of filling the crack? Yes. Whether it's, we need more bluegrass music, or we need to make shade structures. If you see the need, you fill the need.
Right.
The year of Katrina, I ended up with my partner at the time doing a adult webcam related fundraiser for Katrina, and afterwards nobody would take our money.
Yeah.
And
wow.
that Burners Without Borders did not yet exist as an entity, but I'd heard there were people down there and reached out and they said, we would love your money. And so actually ended up donating a bunch of money to what at the time was their umbrella organization, which was a Buddhist temple, I guess, that was helping them raise money. And so, so I feel like such a fan of Burners Without Borders. It's such a perfect way also for our community to channel the activism that's generated in a way that does not actually, it's not issue based. Mm-hmm. It's about healing and growth and helping. Yeah. Because I think that's something that's dangerous within the Burning Man community, is that a lot of people feel like as we're activated as human beings and as we feel that duocracy need to help, there is a temptation to feel like we need to be politically active,
right?
Which I think we do as individuals, but we need to be very careful about making issues specifically aligned with Burning Man.
Right.
I think Burners Without Borders is a great example of it's a separate entity that allows people to be activist within specific directions. But if you start to align politics and issues with Burning Man, you start to corrupt this super powerful thing that we have, which is radical self-expression. Radical self-expression can go in any direction. It can be conservative. It can be Republican. It can be religious. It can be whatever. And once you start trying to control that, it starts to lose the access to this super deep power. It's like
radical inclusion.
Right.
Yeah, to be able to bring, like, this is the place where we come together to cultivate the ideas. This isn't taking the ship, the entire ship in the direction you want to go. There's still 2,000 other people on the ship. Maybe
right.
they don't all want to go the same direction.
Right.
But this is the place where we can come together and have those conversations. I mentioned before we started recording that I interviewed Brian Baker, the Episcopal priest whose talk went viral.
A hero.
He's such an amazing person. But that's one of the things that we talked about in that interview is that he learned very quickly that speaking from, do they call it a podium in a church? I forget what.
Pulpit?
Pulpit, there you go. Speaking from the pulpit was damaging. He himself is an aggressive social justice activist. But he learned that he himself can go and be a part of political movements, and he was pushing for marriage equality and all this kind of stuff, right? But speaking from the pulpit corrupted and created a lot of anarchy within the organization. Whereas the church is the place where people should come together and be able to have the conversations, not take the entire church in that same direction. You need a place to come together.
I'm not sure when this will air, but right today in Washington, D.C., the Juggalos have descended to defend themselves because they've been grouped in to be called a gang within the administration. And so
they've been pushing that for a long time.
And long ago, I had a judgmental attitude about Juggalos because I didn't know anything about them, and then watched some documentaries and realized that how much alignment that I think burners have with any group and organization that comes together to support one another in their self-expression. So today I'm wooting in solidarity with the Juggalos and the Episcopalians and everyone that is following their truth. And I think that Burning Man and burners every once in a while need to kind of check themselves with that as well.
This is one of my favorite quotes by Rumi. It says, out beyond ideas of right doing and wrong doing, there's a field. I will meet you there. Isn't that beautiful?
I think it looks a lot like Deep Playa.
yeah, that's so cool. All right, well, let's get to 2017 Burning Man, which is I imagine that's why.
The what of Burning Man?
The 2017.
Cool.
Burning
So
Man.
there's an interesting, I think, segue to a Burning Man 2017 issue that's related to radical inclusion, and it's related to this issue of open-mindedness and. There was a lot of controversy this year during and after about cultural appropriation. And
different than usual?
I think definitely, because this year there was a camp that brought in Native people to do ceremonies and brought in water protectors, and there was this kind of impression.
Red Lightning.
Yes.
We will be doing a Red Lightning show soon.
So, and I want to preface by saying that I have massive love and respect for so many people in Red Lightning and so many of their intentions, and it's been a struggle to hear in the wake of this a lot of first-person accounts from Native people who have been sharing disheartening stories, and especially considering
because I just want to clarify the disheartening stories. Mind you, of course, I want to hear exactly what your experiences have been, but what I'm hearing is not specific to Red Lightning. It's just that's just where the gathering was held.
There was leadership among Red Lightning that was organizing ceremonies and events, and when certain natives approached them to correct certain things and said, "Hey, this song is not being used correctly. This instrument is not being used correctly," they were kind of pushed aside and said, they were not open to the dialogue. And I thought one of the things that was so beautiful about what was happening is that, so many people have been inspired by Native American traditions and and I think Red Lightning has taken a lot of inspiration. And so I thought it was so beautiful that they were kind of bringing in people to speak authentically and maybe lead authentically and I think that a piece of that in a good intention didn't go as it could have. I think that people still had an agenda and a script of how they wanted things to go. And then when Native people spoke up and said, can we steer you back on track? That did not go as it could have. And in doing so, a number of people and have been very vocal in terms of using that as an example of how Burning Man is off track and is not the place it should be. And I think that, just as in anything with Burning Man, if you put a focus on any one place, you can see all sorts of things, and you can, no matter what, you'll have a distorted concept of what the whole community is. And when you have a community that is based on radical self-expression, some of that expression is going to be troubling.
Right.
And the majority of it is going to be beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, I think that as, excuse me, part of what we've talked about many times on this show is that as the community is expanding and growing, it's a common experience that's going to happen where you have different individuals with different thoughts on how things should be moving forward, and you have different agendas, and some people have certain intentions and other people have others. So we are planning a future redlining episode. Like I've connected with some people in the camp, and we're going to be talking about it. But I would imagine, as with any organization, you talk to 10 different people, they'll give you 10 different stories about what their version of the events were and what their experiences were.
I think it's a specifically challenging direction, because like we had the theme of radical ritual.
Right.
And one of the things that makes Burning Man so powerful is that you're invited to create your own rituals, and you're created to listen to your inner voice and then act sacredly in that direction. And you're kind of given permission to do whatever that is.
Right.
When, however, you leverage or build upon someone else's tradition, you don't have the same freedom.
Yeah.
I can't say, oh, you know what? I'm going to wear a burqa and I'm going to stencil it. No, I don't have that. I don't have that right, because I can create a new thing. And I think that that's where it gets very tricky, is that we can create and we can honor. When we do both, we have to really get into a place of listening.
Right.
And that goes back to that privilege place. Like when you're going to appropriate, or when you're going to borrow or be inspired by, you have to lead with listening.
Right. I helped Uli Baba and the Horny Thieves build this year. And we had this very robust and entertaining conversation on one of our breaks. I think like somebody said something about appropriation. And then I made a joke about them having a camp. I'm Middle Eastern. My family's from Iran. So I see a lot of my culture out there like being utilized. But like a lot of it, what I looked at when I was walking around the desert, I'm like, oh, there's a reason we wear this shit in the desert.
Right.
Because it's flowing, the air flows in, like this kind of, open clothing works easily. And really a big thing that came out of that conversation that I was having, they're wonderful people, by the way, really awesome, intelligent, awesome people, was that we would like to have some sort of a black and white answer, but really the closest thing that we can find to that is when appropriation is an issue, when you have somebody who is in a position of power over another culture who has dealt with a lot of oppression and pain, and they're communicating to the other culture who is in a position of power over them, hey, you're hurting us. And their response is kind of a shrug.
Exactly. And that is this I think, bigger conversation and growth around privilege that I've been really trying to sit with and listen to and be a part of for the last couple of years, which is that, sometimes the gut reaction is when someone mentions offense is to be like, well, that I didn't mean that, or it shouldn't be offensive. And really that's the, I won't say incorrect, but I believe that to be a ill-intentioned path forward.
Right.
It doesn't matter what your intention was. All that matters is someone says, your actions caused me hurt.
Yeah.
And then you simply have the choice. Do I want to continue hurting them?
Right.
Or do I want to adjust my actions to try to reduce the hurt and suffering and offense that I create? Right. Now you can decide, you know what? Like, I don't care. In fact, I recently made a video where I was talking about...
You have to be a part of the conversation.
Yes.
That's the mistake that people make. We're not even saying you have to agree with every single person all the time, but just don't just walk away.
and it's just... So I was trying to explain how I used to use the word "that's so gay," and I go, I didn't mean it to be negative towards homosexuality, or what I meant to say was that's just so lame.
Yeah.
And people wrote in and they said, I appreciate this dialogue, but as someone in a wheelchair, when you say lame, I hear that word as being offensive. And I was like, oh my gosh, how funny that I'm trying to explain my struggle with the correct wording, and in doing so, offend people with my words. And it was just like, my first reaction was, I can't win. And I was like, you know what? No. This is how you move forward. And the price I pay for my privilege is that I have to sit with this awkwardness, and I have to I have to listen. And even though I sometimes I might bristle up and be like, I can't win. I go, no. I've won my whole life.
Yeah.
So I need to listen.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that saying, that approach. I've been winning my whole life, so it's okay. I can listen. I can tell, obviously I'm not a representative of all brown people on the planet, but I can tell you, like, that's the only thing that I ask when a conversation like that comes up is don't be dismissive.
Right.
Like, it's a silly example, but like the war bonnet, like the
right.
Native American extremely aggressively traditional headdress that has a very specific meaning that you see the extremely pretty people wearing on, like, is most commonly on Fridays and Saturdays at Burning Man, like towards the end of the
right.
week when the weekend warriors show up. That's an example. Like, maybe the first couple of times that there was some fashion shoot that utilized them, it was kind of an interesting artistic approach. And then somebody stepped up and said, hey, so this is a little offensive. And then, like, maybe the art director of that fashion shoot, maybe it was in Vogue or something, said, you know what, let's not do that again. The issue with it is that now this conversation has been had for an extended period of time.
Right.
You're hearing the conversation and you're still going, nah, fuck it, I'm going to do it anyway. That's the asshole move. The asshole move is not the first time you fuck up or the second time or when you have the dialogue and you have some conversation with yourself. The problem is when the conversation's been had for an extended period of time. There's extended conversation about it. This is hurting people. Stop. Right. And you're just like, no, fuck it. I can't make everybody happy anyway, so I'm just going to keep doing it.
And that's why I think that the objective of a dialogue is the only healthy way. When you yell at somebody or when you attack them. Now, I think you have to make the assumption, let's assume this person's ignorant and I'm going to let them know, and then we can both move forward with, like, hey, growth experience, growth opportunity. Yeah. But you're right. Once someone learns my actions are causing hurt and I don't care, then I've now made a choice that I don't care and I'm choosing to cause you hurt. Right. I mean, that's just an asshole move.
By the way, here's the thing. And this is what I talk to, like, younger artists about, right? And I've had this conversation with many younger artists about what path they want to go and how they're creating art. If you are creating something that is, for lack of a better description, causing somebody pain, and they tell you that, you want to continue doing it, what I say is ask yourself, is this something worth fighting for?
Yeah.
Because if it's worth fighting for, yes, as an artist, you should keep fucking doing that. If your art is meant to be disruptive, if you're doing that with the intention, but you don't get to create something that's disruptive and then be upset about it. So, for example, the war bonnet thing that we see so much on Friday and Saturday, is that important?
Right.
Like, I mean, to your, like, that's great. I mean, yeah, it looks cool, but, like, is that, like, a really important thing that you're passionate about and you feel like it's important to fight for? If you do, great, fight for it. I say go do it. Write about it. Yeah. That's a big thing. Go have at it. But is it that important? Because I feel like you could just as easily wear something else that looks super cool.
It looks great with the skirt I have. Yeah.
I know.
So, I've been working through something it's not cultural appropriation, but it is. I worked for a long time in my life trying to be a hugger when I meet people.
Yeah.
And I've had people in the last few years say that it's troublesome when I approach someone with a hug, that I should ask for verbal consent. I shouldn't touch people. And I really struggled. And I've come back to a place where I do not assume and I do not always ask for verbal consent before I give someone a hug. If I feel like it's not open, I might say, are you a hugger first? Right. But I don't want to ask for a hug because that's not the same thing. Right, then I'm requesting a transaction of some sort. And so I've kind of come to peace with something like what you just said, like, am I willing to fight for this? Am I willing to have situations that are awkward or have someone not appreciate the way that I do it?
Right.
Because I believe that I want to live in a world where I'm going to assume that we are more intimate and more open to one another than one that demands a handshake.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of people that I really care about their opinion tell me that I'm wrong. And
so you ask verbally?
No, I've been told I need to. Mm-hmm. What I generally do now is, depending on the circumstance. At Burning Man, I'm usually just hands out.
Right.
And I say the onus is on you.
Like all the way out? Because this is important. That's why I'm asking.
It is situational.
Is it like Armin van Buuren out, like all the way out, helicopter DJ stance out, or is it
no?
Just like...
I think that it's kind of arms low, because some of them too, that as especially with male to female, there is a I don't want it to be an assault.
Right.
I try to make it to be a visual cue, and then I believe that there is an unspoken dialogue that can happen where you can put the handshake out.
Right.
Now, personally, I find hand-to-hand touching to be disgustingly intimate from a germ perspective. I would much rather hug 50 people than handshake 5, you know? So it's like, but to me, the onus is on me to adjust that. And I believe that if you have trauma in your life where you find touch to be hurtful, I apologize, but I am going to fight this fight and say the onus is on you to adjust my comfortable greeting.
Yeah. This is something that I've spent some time fine-tuning over the years. And I think it's also connected to what I do as a photographer. There's definitely a lot of overlap in I'm looking for body language.
Right.
And as a photographer, I'm doing that constantly, because the conversation of consent with photography is a huge one in our community right now. And I'm hoping to do a future episode all about that specifically.
Cool.
But I look for body language, and when I'm in an environment, let's say I'm around some people, usually I'll kind of wait until I kind of get to know people a little bit more. And as much as I miss those aggressively candid shots as an artist, shrug. I don't want to get into somebody else's personal space and make them uncomfortable just for this candid shot. I'm not going to do that anymore. So I'm looking for ways. So one of the things that I look for is I get to know people a little bit more. I might be in an environment where it's a few people that I already know, and I kind of watch their body language. And I've had situations where as soon as I shift my camera, I'll see like their shoulders shift a little bit in uncomfort.
Right.
Put the camera right back down. I'm not going to do it. Then I've had other ones where it's like, oh, got it. But I can even tell in that moment, like if they were uncomfortable with it, I'll delete the photo right away. And there isn't like 100% perfect way to do it, mind you. And approaching it in this manner, there's been maybe one person in like the past 3 years who's like communicated to me that made them uncomfortable. For the most part, as soon as I begin to see that it might even be remotely an issue, toss it. I'll go shoot another photo. It's not a big deal. I'm not willing to fight for that to make that person uncomfortable. And I think it's the same thing with like the hugging. I kind of will open my hands a little bit, but not stretch it all the way out because I'm 6'5".
Right.
So I open my arms and I take a step back. So it's kind of like, it's kind of like the kiss. Like if you're going in for a kiss, you want to meet halfway. You don't want to go into their face.
Right. And I should say, when I say this is what I'm willing to fight for, I'm not taking a hug from anyone. I'm not forcing a hug. What I mean, what I'm willing to fight is I'm not willing to fully retreat and stop hugging without having the full verbal dialogue first, which a lot of people have asked me to. So I'm willing to have every once in a while a moment of discomfort while we work this out, rather than retreat all the way back and say I'm gonna always assume that a hug needs a negotiation first.
Right. I really like, are you a hugger? That's a good way to present it, I think, because you're not asking for a favor.
Yeah. I'm saying, like, are we both on the page? Then let's both come to this mutual gift together. And
I would just say, just so we have all of our bases covered, yes, I'm certain there are situations where somebody feels pressured and they don't really want to hug, but then they say I am anyway. But gosh, there's 7 billion people on the planet, man. That's
the war that I'm still going to stay in. That I'm there's going to be elements of discomfort, and I'm not willing to sanitize everything so much that no one has ever heard.
And honestly, I would argue that the hug is our community's secret handshake. That's our frat's secret handshake. Like that's what we got. And I do feel like I have had too many conversations and too many experiences with people who are looking back on their life's journey and feeling grateful that they pushed past that comfort boundary and became huggers.
Right.
There has been such a massive influx of those people in my life that I think it would be a disservice to the world to be aggressively concerned about the tiny, tiny, tiny percentage of people who are never going to get past that. We're going to still show them love and be supportive. We're not going to push our move onto them. But again, there's only so much we can do.
And I should also say that, if you're not familiar with me and the things I do, I've been doing Hug Nation as a broadcast for 15 years online. So hugging is deeply tied to how I identify in the world. Yeah. And I should say that also that if I do not have a verbal conversation, if I do not say you're a hugger and we do have a hug, the hug that I'm going to do if there's not some setup in any way is going to be just a chest touch. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm not going to hold you tightly. I'm not going to caress your back. Yeah. I'm not going to grind against you. And I think that's sometimes the fear is that if I let you in, then I don't have control of how much you touch me. Right. And like a chest tap is, I think that's where the dialogue starts for me.
Yeah. I'd say this though, if I'm gonna get a sideways backhand pat hug, let's just skip it. right. It's fine.
Arm bump.
Yeah, that's fine. So real quick, I don't want to get into too much detail on this, but you were one of the extra crazy people who went to the Oregon Eclipse Festival and then came straight into the burn.
Yeah.
We're going to do a future episode where we get like really into the meat of like the festival, I'm sure. But what was that experience like?
So I think there's two pieces to that experience. There was the eclipse and there was the festival. Mm. And what I would rather do is talk about the eclipse.
Sure.
Because the festival, you know, there was a lot of organizational things and challenges and long bathroom lines and as well as incredible entertainment and performers like I've never seen. And, you know, but
I'm more thinking just as you as an individual dealing with like the physical logistics of going from one aggressive festival and inhospitable environment to another.
Here's the part of the story that I am just still reeling from is that, so I'll go to, I kind of tried to get out of it because I was like, what am I doing? Like, how can I start? I've never even like stopped. At
a lot of people did.
I know.
Yeah.
But there's, so but
like, what was
the eclipse
I
happened, I kind of got forced into it, but I was so grateful because something about the totality, which is different. You know, people go, oh, I saw 85%. I'm like, well, that's like getting 3/4 of the way through the line before you got to the club. Like you didn't get it. You didn't see it. And so the eclipse itself.
Just the tip.
And so there was this 2 minutes of something profound. And, you know, you see this black eye of God in the sky. It's black. The sky is dark. You see full 360 sunset. But it was more than the visuals. There was some physical, like deep sensation and awareness that I had that, like, I often like to go to the ocean because it is a way for me to soften and relieve anxieties. Because everything about my life seems so meaningless and small compared to the vastness of the sea. Right. And the waves that have been crashing long before I was alive and the waves have been crashing long after I'm dead. The eclipse was like that experience times 1,000,000, where in this moment, feeling this alignment of sun, moon, me, it felt like this breath in this ageless timeline. And I just had this sense of timelessness and this sense of my smallness.
Yeah.
And then all of my worries and all of my stresses seem so insignificant. And so to go to this experience, this profound experience of smallness and nothing matters, to then go to Burning Man, where we draw this line in the sand and we say, hey, let's bring things that matter. Let's do so yes, nothing matters. So do shit that matters. Yeah. And it was so awesome to have this kind of reminder that we choose the adventures, choose the obstacles. It doesn't really matter. So then find stuff that lights you up. Yeah. And it ended up being like, I would not have made the choice, but the fact that it kind of aligned that way was profound.
Yeah. No, what you're describing, I think was, it's like doing DMT and then immediately starting your business tomorrow.
Right.
That's going to be, that is like, right. 2 different explosions.
Well, and I think that's, you know, it was a reminder of a way I like to look at the world, which is that it's a big game, you know, and you put on your jersey, you align yourself with teammates, you build camaraderie with them, and you try your hardest to win. You sweat, you slide tackle, you get dirty, you when you score, you celebrate. When you lose a goal, you feel pain. But if you ever get so caught up in the game that the stress is making you sick,
Yeah.
or so caught up in the game that you hate your opponents, then you got to pull back and remind yourself it doesn't really matter.
It's a game.
It's a game.
Yeah.
And so Burning Man is this super incredible scrimmage that reminds you that.
Yeah. Scrimmage is a good description. I really like that. I really liked on Burning Man's page, because I want to talk about the theme, radical ritual. They had a great quote on BM.org's website. It said, beyond the dogmas, creeds, and metaphysical ideas of religion, there is an immediate experience. And the other day I had a social media post that I think I was saying that Burning Man is a religious experience. I'm not saying it's a religion. I'm not saying it's about spirituality, et cetera, et cetera. This is what I was trying to get to.
Yeah.
And then I read this quote today, literally at the website. I'm like, oh, okay, they covered what I was getting at.
Right.
There was a lot of conversation on Playa about like Burning Man really looking into the eyes of that dialogue about what religion is and what ritual is and where Burning Man falls in for people. And the thing that I've always described, not always, I've more recently come to, is that Burning Man for me, if you imagine the human brain is the computer hard drive, and there's a couple of empty slots where you can put some drives in there. If you're a PC person, I'm sure this makes sense. But in one of those empty slots is religion. And that's where Burning Man popped in for me. And it's not to say that I see Burning Man as a religion, but that's the slot that it filled. That's the place that it holds. And when I talk to people about this, some people have an extremely positive response to that. And others, because of, I imagine, a lot of the religious oppression that they've experienced in their upbringing and the association that they have with religion, are aggressively disgusted by that suggestion.
Well, I think this has to do with, to many people, religion is this external set of beliefs and teachings that then you apply onto your life.
Right.
That
and it wasn't forced on them.
And it can be anytime anything that is an attempt to explain the inexplainable, anything that is an attempt to try to make the unknowable knowable, it goes through a human perspective and it becomes slightly corrupt. Right. And so when anybody else's perception of truth gets applied to you, it has a potential of being a distortion.
Right.
But what Burning Man does, and what Radical Ritual I think is such a beautiful way to allow religion to be your own, is that Burning Man encourages you to create, to truly tune into what your truth is, and then make that your religion.
Yeah. So
if your truth is out of alignment with what you've been taught, fine.
Yeah.
Follow your truth. And that's one reason why the temple is so beautiful. It's like there's a concept of what it is supposed to mean or what it can mean, but when you walk in there, it means whatever you need it to mean. It is the experience that you need, and anytime that you're not having the expression of spirituality or religion that you want, listen and create it.
Yeah. Can I say what a breathtaking temple this year, though? I was just absolutely flabbergasted by how gorgeous it was.
It was beautiful. I had this, and the temple is always a highlight for me. And we don't have these places for public grieving in our world, and we don't have a place where it's considered. I mean, I guess there are some cultures where you have a funeral and people wail, and I've never experienced that. But
yeah, Iranians are really good at that.
Yeah. Bravo! I think it's important.
Yeah, we're really good at mourning.
And so I had an experience this year where I went into the temple and I brought in a bunch of things that I intellectually knew that I wanted to leave there, and then got down on my knees and just had intimate visits with all of my past grandparents. And I was laugh crying in just tears gushing out of me. I think if you looked at me from the outside, you would have been, oh my gosh, this guy is really having a hard time.
Yeah.
But it was one of the most blissful experiences. And I think this overall radical ritual, create your own truth permission, is what has taught me to be able to have these profound emotional experiences.
Right.
And not judge them. It's not, oh, this wasn't sad, this wasn't bad, this wasn't traumatic. This was just intense beyond what my human experience is used to.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful.
Well, because removing that negative judgment about the experience, which is something a lot of society has done. We've applied this negative judgment to the experience of crying.
Yes.
And this is a silly way to describe it, but the way that I describe it is it's emotional constipation. You have to go take a shit. You can't hold it in forever. And what crying is the release of all of this stuff that's been building up inside of you, and you let it all out, and then you feel 10 pounds lighter. I'm like, man, I'm really glad I took that huge dump right now. I'm ready to go really party.
It can almost feel like tears of ejaculate. Like, whoa, that was incredible. Yeah. Like, I feel like,
orgasmic. Yes. Yeah. My first year, I probably cried. I cried more that week, my first burn, than I think I probably ever have in my life in a shortened time period. Just even random moments, watching this guy balancing on a high wire, and it wasn't that high up, it was just a couple of feet up, and he's just kind of goofing around. I'm watching this and I just burst into tears. I'm like, this is so beautiful. And then at Temple Burn, I cried for a good 20-25 minutes. I mean, it was 3 decades of backed up tears that got released in that 1 week. So people would keep asking me my first burn, are you having fun? And I'd look at them and turn my head and be like, I'm not sure. Is this fun?
Can we rephrase the question?
Yeah.
I think that's... I look back at my burns as the best ones, quote unquote, are the ones that I cry the most. And this year, partially because of the way that I was so emotionally open after the eclipse, I had cried more on Sunday of opening day than I generally ever do, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a doozy. And it was
Burner Podcast.
Hey guys, I wanted to just take a quick little break. I know we don't do these as often these days. A lot of the announcements have been pushed to the very beginning of the show, but real quickly, we had a couple of close friends in the San Diego community this past year. It's Harvey Perez and Dan Henderson, both really beautiful, amazing souls. Dan, I got to actually see out on Playa and see what he got to experience Burning Man. I got to hug him out there in the dust. And he was just really a dear friend and a welcoming and warm spirit, and very close to many of our hearts. And Harvey, of course, was also a really sweet and kind person. I mean, he was somebody who, just the instant that you met him, you felt nothing but warm, sweet, kind, positive feelings. I remember just enjoying, he was very soft-spoken. And I remember just enjoying being literally in his presence, just sitting next to him, maybe not even speaking, just having him physically be there next to me. So I just want to take a moment to recognize these two beautiful people. I did go out to the temple and kind of take a moment to kind of hold space for their souls, for their presence, and to show my gratefulness for having had them in my life. So anyway, for the San Diego community, just wanted to mention these two and have a quick moment here, and right afterwards we'll get right back to the show.
Welcome home.
A quick shout out, by the way, to a camp that I stumbled across called Camp Wishmaker. Are you familiar with them?
No.
They have this beautiful setup at the entry, and it's kind of like these, I want to say they're like wooden, possibly bamboo structures, but they're burnable, basically. I don't know if bamboo is burnable. Anyway, you go inside and they have these tables set up, and they have markers and colors and different kinds of paper and ribbons and all this like beautifully orchestrated arts and crafts table where you could write down wishes, you can write down thoughts, whatever you'd like to be included in the temple burn. You write these things up, and then you can present them, fold them a certain way, put a scroll on it, and really just make it a beautiful little piece and hang it onto these wooden structures that they have at the entrance. And on the day of the temple burn, they take it out and they place it into the temple, and it all goes up.
Cool.
So if you want to participate, like let's say for some people it's really difficult to get out to the temple. I can tell you, like, for me, like, I have to set the intention to go.
Right.
If you're just out, like, partying and you end up passing by the temple, you're like, I don't want to go in there right now. Like, this is not the mode that I'm in.
Right.
But Camp Wishmaker is a place that you could go swing by and really take your time and write down your thoughts and have them taken in.
You know, we have a part of our big pink frontage. We have a pink dome filled with pillows, and this year we added something. Bella, our campmate, she added a altar in the middle of it, trying to embrace radical rituals, and she had a ritual with little pieces of paper and pens that you would do a similar thing where at the end of the week we brought it all to the temple.
Oh, cool.
Trying to integrate ritual into more and more of what we tried to do this year.
Pink card will be much easier for you to find.
That's true. Yes.
Next year. I don't know if you don't know where Pink Card is. Because can I say, by the way, on that note, the man was gorgeous. Did not help me worth a lick on finding where the fuck I was in the city.
Yeah, that I had these thoughts of.
Pink Card helped me find where I was more.
Well, thank you. I had moments where I was critical of the structure because of that reason. Like I just didn't have that iconic, place marker.
Right.
And all of my thoughts of criticism were out the window when it burned.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Whoa.
It was beautiful. I wanted to get this out of the way earlier, but we ended up getting into other topics. But let's talk about the death that happened on Burn Night. I know his name was Aaron Joel Mitchell. His name has been everywhere, all over the news. It's no secret. We do know that he was living in Switzerland. Word is he was at Organ Eclipse, and people knew. It seemed like he was having a good time. I want to say he was like 41, 42. It's definitely like the immediate thing people keep asking me about.
Yep.
As soon as I don't want to sound aloof, but I do want to learn more about this individual. I would love to have been there with him in the last moments. So I could really figure out what was happening with him in that moment. It's 70,000 people.
Exactly.
I mean, it's huge. The fact that we've had this tragic experience this one time, when you look at the sheer number of people that are out there every year and the amount of dangerous things that people are doing, climbing up on these kinds of things, it is just a drop in the ocean, you know? And I don't know a whole lot about him. I've been trying to do some research.
I mean, so one of the first things that I posted when I got back into cell phone service, because I just started getting flooded with people going, I heard someone died. Right. So the first thing I posted was 70,000 people participated at Burning Man and lived.
Yeah.
And lived all in capitals, because the story to me is that 70,000 people are alive.
Right.
And is one of the narratives about what happened at Burning Man this year that someone's life ended?
Exactly.
Absolutely. And the people that were touched by that, that's tragic. And the people that saw it, there's a lot of healing that has to happen around that. But is that what happened at Burning Man this year? No. Hundreds of people got married. Right. Hundreds of people found their soulmates. Hundreds of people, thousands, 10,000s of people are lit up in ways that is profound. Were people dying all week long all around the world? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Did we show up and suddenly the news is filled with drownings and tragedies? Yes. Did we have a tragedy at Burning Man? Yes. And I don't want to minimize that. I don't want to sound cold. I don't want to tell anyone how they're supposed to grieve but I also would say it is to make someone's entire life about the moment of their death.
Right.
That I find disrespectful. If you want to celebrate his life, let's do it. But if you want to make the story of Burning Man about a moment decision or a moment action that has negativity around it, I find that you're falling into the trap of media. You're falling into the trap of our culture that tries to make everything about the darkness when there's so much light.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When you're describing all the different people that lived, I think about all the different people that had the most impactful spiritual epiphanies that they've ever had in their lives, that may inspire the next business that they're starting or the next chapter in their lives. I know that was a lot of what it was for me this year. It's true. Immediately the thought goes towards what is this most negative thing? But at the same time, I do one of the many things that I love about this community is that we're going to look at this thing right in the eye. Mm-hmm. We're not going to run away from it, which is something it feels like a lot of different parts of the default world does. We want to run away from it. And I imagine one of the primary reasons why so much of the news and media narrative immediately jumped on that is because a lot of the default world likes to run away from facing these kinds of demons. And so when it does happen, there's this like gossipy, gawky kind of approach rather than like a respectful, let's talk about this, let's explore this. This is a part of the experience.
I think there's another part of it too, which is that people would love to dismiss Burning Man.
Yes.
People would love to think that they're not missing out. People would love to think that it is all the shallow things that they want it to be. Because if you're not going, just like if you miss a great party, you want to hear that it sucked.
Right.
You know, if someone had a great meal, you want to hear they had food poisoning. There's a part of you that doesn't want to feel like you missed out. And so when you hear the negative story, it's very tempting to hold on to it. But I like what you're saying that we're willing to look it in the face, as long as we give it fair attention to all the good things that deserve to be looked in the face. I mean, one person ended their life that night. I've had contact from several people over the course of that week decided not to end their lives. That, to me, is a story worth talking about.
A previous guest of this show had a very powerful story about how he was ready to walk into the ocean until his first Burning Man.
Yeah. And so it's this balance of like, I don't want to deny or pretend or look away from anything negative. I just want to make sure that we look at the breadth of the total, which is the same with life. Like it's very tempting to focus on, you know, the pimple on your face and forget that your body's a miracle.
Yeah.
I happened to say that, and people said, "Are you equating a human life to a pimple?"
Yeah.
And I got ripped up, and I'm saying, no, that's called a metaphor, and I apologize, and I didn't mean that what you're thinking I mean, but it's just a way of, we fall into these traps of tunnel vision towards the negative.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, around the man, there is a perimeter of these amazing Black Rock Rangers watching the audience, watching people. And I remember when I was at Saguaro Man back in April in Arizona Regional Burn, here's my multiple experiences at Burning Man and watching these massive city go up and all this kind of stuff, right? The vastness of our community really hit me in Arizona because they have the same burn perimeter and they have the same structure of, Black Rock Rangers standing. And it was an interesting experience because here in San Diego, we don't get to burn shit because we're wildfire country. But it was fascinating to watch that. And they have the same Black Rock Rangers and they're the same training, the same perimeter setup. It's just maybe smaller. And they're watching the people for the same kind of thing. They're watching for somebody like, for example, this individual who might run past them and they have to tackle them down. That exists.
They stop people all the time.
Yeah. They stop people all the time.
And actually, so that's something that
this is a crazy subject.
I've had a number of very long and deep conversations with friends who are on Sandman team, who are the ones who tackle people, who stop it. That's their, and when I think about, when I struggle with trying to get my head around the experience, I think about that experience. Imagine your job was to stop this person.
Yeah.
And you stopped other people that night. They stopped other people. And so...
And people always, by the way, this is part of the thing that people keep asking me too. Is it the drugs? Is it the this? There's some weird primal thing that I don't know unless you have more information than I do. This is the conversations that I've had with Rangers about it. And they're like, I couldn't tell you for certain what it is, but there's a look in some people's eyes that they see, and it's some lizard brain thing takes over, and I need to run into that fire.
I mean, every time I go climbing in Yosemite, I'll be like, whoa, I just had a desire to jump off half dome. What
there's a name for that fear. The fear of not being able to stop yourself from jumping.
Right, so, and I had moments at the burn. I mean, I wasn't anywhere close to to the burn. I generally watch it from Pinkart up on the Esplanade. But I've had moments of intensity where I've never had the desire to run into a fire, but I've had the thought of like, everything is so big and one and connected, and it would not feel crazy to me,
right?
And so I get why we need to have people. Now, one thing I find an interesting response is, the next night we did do the temple burn, and so I actually went on BMR the next day to talk to the community and say, we're going to do the burn and we need to come together, and I had hundreds of extra volunteers to watch to help make sure that didn't happen again. And we had a fence, which I thought was I'm only going to assume that that's going to be a sign of the times, is now we will have a fence. But it's unfortunate. But in some ways, it's kind of like not allowing liquid on planes. Yeah. Like, you think that you can't find a way to kill yourself at Burning Man. Yeah. It's like,
no, it's constantly amazing to me that we don't have more deaths.
Yes.
Yeah. No. Yeah. They were looking for I know, fast people to be able to catch it, because that would again be an extra negative splash onto the experience. I think that's what they were afraid of.
Yeah. Oh, I think I was so impressed with how so many departments handled things and moved forward, and did not turn away from it, as you said, but did not just shut things down, but found a way forward as a community, as emotionally, systems wide.
Yeah.
Can I change topic slightly?
I just wanted to mention one last thing, actually, as the last bit. My heart really does go out to the people who witnessed it.
Absolutely.
Really, there's a Reddit user who wrote their accounts. They claim to have watched the whole experience, and they describe watching it happen. They describe the conversations that were happening around him that made him sick. They describe going back to camp and throwing up, and really, I just want to say, like, I know I'm certain you're on the same page. I am. Like, really, my heart goes out to the people who experienced it, and
so deeply. And so one of the first things I put online was a video about the death, because I'm like, look, that we have to talk about that first,
right?
And I've had a number of people write me or post comments about their experiences, and people who are still had trouble sleeping. Lots of people going through PTSD therapy, and I think that all of those things are natural reactions. And as you said, like my so much compassion and love to people who have had all sorts of experiences, around this.
Can I say, by the way, if anybody who is listening, who is a person who's been affected by this is an important time to remember that you weren't just at a single event, you're part of a community.
Yes. There
are people, if not within reach in your own town, please feel free to contact us here. We can forward you. You can go to burnerpodcast.com, and if we need to connect you with people, we can do that. Like, we have a vast community. We have resources. You might even have like an ombudsman in your town. You might have people who have taken it upon themselves to lead circles and hold space for people who need help and who need support. We can help you find those people. You have community. You're not alone. That's an important thing to remember in these situations.
And me saying that I'm giving myself permission to look at the light as well as the dark. I also want to give permission to stay in whatever you're feeling as long as you want, and you're not alone.
Absolutely. Let's what topic did you want to pivot to? I have a few more.
So I had a profound experience at the burn this year that was along the lines of radical ritual and along the lines of so much what I think the beautiful thing about Burning Man is it is this petri dish of super goo that allows inspiration. And what I saw this year more than ever before was how this inspiration breeds inspiration, breeds inspiration, breeds inspiration. Kind of like how, the Billion Bunny March now has the carrot protests, and then has all these, it just these things kind of become fractal expressions. And I had an experience where on Saturday morning of the burn and on sunrise, I saw a wedding happening out in front of my camp. And there's a lot of people that get married there because we have this cool like pink fir archway that's kind of perfect for a ceremony. And And some people get, drunk in the middle of the night, decide to get married, and some people plan it, and fly people in. And this one was a well-planned wedding. Everyone was in white, this gorgeous, like, young priest and priestess looking people. And it was in the tradition that I like to call sacred silly, which is how Pink Heart tries to be. Like, we yes, this is all very important, and it's not important, and we should laugh and dance. And so they had this incredible ceremony, and then they told their story, which was that 2 years ago at Pink Heart, they met out front and fell in love.
Wow.
And made love all night. And then the next year, he proposed to her in front of Pink Heart.
Oh, wow.
And then this year, they got married in front of Pink Heart. And I don't know these people, but seeing this love story that all happened within this womb container of Pink Heart, and all the love that me and my campmates have put in over the years, and to see this love, this new love, be created sacredly as a radical ritual, as an extension of all of this love momentum. It was like, I've never seen a child be born. I don't have any kids, but I felt like I was watching a grandkid be born. And it was so profound. It was one of the highlights of my entire life to see that's how this magic happens. You put out love ripples, you put out your energy, you put out your passions, and it just keeps going.
That's incredible. That's really beautiful. I can't I can't even imagine what that must be like. How many people were at the wedding?
There's probably about 30 people at the wedding. Yeah, and it was one of the three kind of pretty big ones we had at camp, and I had campmates that got married there as well, and that was incredibly gorgeous and very moving. But it was a different thing to be a part of the love story, because I know these people, than to see these are strangers, and yet I am a part of their love story.
Yeah.
It was so awesome.
Who conducted the wedding?
The one that I don't know of? A friend of theirs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then, like, you stepped out, and then you have this conversation with them, I imagine.
Yeah.
Like, oh, wow.
Yeah. I'm like, can I interview you guys? Like, yes! So I have a cool video footage of them telling their love story.
That's really great. Yeah. I know Sonya Sophia, who was our guest on the last episode of this show, she got married out there at Sunrise.
She's amazing.
Yeah, I think on Wednesday. Yeah, and she was saying, like, come out. I'm like, okay, I'm really gonna try, but I had a lot of different responsibilities happening at my camp, and sleep deprivation.
Wait, you were invited to something at Burning Man and you didn't make it? How dare you?
I know, I can't believe I even signed my RSVP and everything. Hope I can get my plane ticket refunded. So this year was fucking hot.
Oh my God.
Holy shit.
So, I mean, one of the kind of reputations of Burning Man is that, it's so hot.
Yeah. Was this the hottest it's ever been, do you think?
For me, yeah. I can remember a year or two when we had over 100-degree days, but never so many, never so relentless. And I got to the point where when people go, oh, it's so hot, I don't deal with heat, I'm like, it's not that hot.
Yeah.
It's sometimes in the 90s. And this year I was like, I'm sorry. This is hot.
No, it was rough. It was, I felt like I kind of dealt okay with it for the most part, but the thing that irritated me the most, and I'm going to be such a sparkle pony right now, is I was really excited about this new coat. Right. It was made for me specifically by my friend Jenny Legend with Devashan Lounge, and I've never had something like made for me before, so I've been like so excited about wearing it, and then every goddamn night it's so fucking hot I could not wear the
You set your alarm for 5 a.m. just so you can wear it for half an hour. So Pink Heart, we give away iced cucumber water all day and night, and there's some years when it's almost hard to give it away. Because it's windy and cold, and it's like, I'm good with water.
Yeah.
This year we gave away over 4,000 gallons of ice water, and it almost became like a medical thing. It was this year more than I've ever experienced. You needed to adjust your behavior to deal with the heat.
Absolutely, yeah. I know Joyous, member of your camp, like she had heat stroke.
We had a good handful of people that had to stay down for days.
And I had a friend, my friend Myra was with a psych team, and she was saying that the domestic violence calls this year were a lot higher than they've ever been. They were getting a lot more psych calls. somebody else had even mentioned, like, there was this is mildly connected to the bike thing. Like, there's like 5,000 bikes that people left on Playa, and there is this like loose correlation, this connection with, as temperatures go up, crime goes up.
Right.
And I don't know, it could be as silly as like people are just more aggravated because of the heat, and they just like, fuck it, just drop things down.
Well, I think, so there's a few topics you just hit on. One is that I feel like the crime and vandalism and aggression this year was turned up a couple notches. And in the same way that I feel like the magic and the beauty and the incredible art was turned up a few notches, it's like we turned up the awesome and we turned up the asshole. And a number of reports of vandalized art, a number of things where people really had to make an effort to destroy stuff.
Right. There was a video called Heartbreak at Burning Man that the Jackrabbit Speaks shared.
With the wood structure?
Right. Yeah. It's really tough. The artist, I have his name actually written here, Michael Tibbetts, he was describing that he came to his art piece and he found that whoever the individual was, like, aggressively attacked it and like broke it and smashed parts of it. Who knows if it was one person, 10 people, but it wasn't just like an accident. Like, somebody intentionally did that.
It was hanging. They had to make serious effort, and it was gorgeous woodworking. I struggle with this a lot because I know that, like we're talking about earlier, how when you encourage radical self-expression, it can go in a lot of directions.
Right.
But we need to have a way to channel the aggression. There are a bunch of camps that allow for grappling and wrestling and Thunderdome, where to channel aggression in healthy ways. And it's unfortunate that there are people that are unable to channel these dark impulses in ways that don't hurt the expressions of others. My heart really went out to him, and that's got to be really difficult. You should definitely, listeners, look up the video. It does have, to me, just the quintessential burner approach to this thing that was so frustrating for him, because then the death happens, and then he, the artist, finds a way to make it beautiful again and make it a part of this experience and make it part of the ritual. So nice. Highly
encourage you to look up. The video is called Heartbreak at Burning Man. The artist's name is Michael Tibbetts. But just even on that note with the art pieces, this is anecdotal, but it almost became a running joke with some of our groups of friends as we were exploring art that there's no climbing signs, more than I've ever seen. Or that's one of the things that I know so many people that look forward to that every year. Like, I'm going to go climb shit. And then you get out there like, oh, wait, you can't climb this. Oh, wait, you can't climb this. Oh, wait, you can't climb this. I wonder, is that a reflection of more delicate art being brought out, or the fact that the event has gotten bigger, so there's more people who aren't certain about these things, or maybe they're a little more confused about what is climbable and what isn't?
That's a great question. And I wonder how much is it about how we now have a shift towards more litigious and more insurance-based things. And, there are things that I never would have even questioned building or creating years ago.
Right.
Where now, as a camp and as a team, we talk about, can we get this insured? Can we? What are the legal repercussions if somebody climbs this and falls? And I think that,
have the insurance requirements been toughened up in the past couple of years?
It's just that no one ever used to consider being insured.
Right.
Like it never crossed my mind that if somebody fell, that they would sue me and now there's just it's a different world with law enforcement. It's a different world with legal responsibilities. It's just a different world. And I think that, I can't speak for the no climbing art, but I think that has to go through someone's mind. Yeah,
I'm certain the concern's that. And then it's also just even the pieces. Part of also what's happening, like I know, like last year we worked, the project that our team brought out was Cabina X0, and that had 3D printed parts that were very delicate.
Right.
So part of the thing is even that is the kind of equipment that we're using to create the art. We're using like CNC routers, 3D printers, and it's creating these more intricate pieces that have become more popular at Burning Man, but they are more delicate. They're easier to break. They're harder. Like, you can't really climb them.
That was something that I really was aware of this year, is how technology and tool advances have changed the art and the visuals of Burning Man. And they I remember my first year on Burn Night, my campmates, the leaders, they dumped out this kind of huge box of glow bracelets I said, Decker, everyone take. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've never seen so many glow. I've never seen so many glow for like. And so put all these bracelets on and just had. It was just, to me, this was mind blowing. And then over time, then we had EL wire that started to be everywhere, and then people started to make sculptures out of EL wire, and then we had LEDs, and now we have programmable LEDs, and it's just kind of this technological evolution that has allowed for all different types of expression. And the same with, as you said, with CDC routers and plasma cutters. So now we have this computer-aided art that has allowed for this technical, detailed, unbelievable expressions, but that are delicate. And then you have the layering, where you have then LED on top of laser cutting, on top of performance, on top of original music, and then it's just like it's just like that petri dish of this kind of fractally expanding expressions. But I think one of the things that happens is, as people open their mind to what could you create, one of the dials that you have to adjust is, can it be delicate?
And full disclosure, that was always like the clash that we had when we were working on Computing Zero, is that I really wanted it to be tough. But our lead artist, Ramiro, really was like focused on like the tiny designs and the details and stuff. And it is interesting to watch these, the clashing of design cultures, for lack of a better description. But I remember Alpi, who's Burner Podcast's original online editor, she was saying, like, at one point they walked out to Playa a few years ago. They're like, when did Burning Man turn into Blinky Man? Like, everything is lit. And that actually transitions for me to the next topic, which I want to talk about just some of our favorite art pieces. Illumina, which was the piece that was brought out by the Mayan Warrior team. Was just epic. It was this massive, it was like 3 stories tall. I don't know how to describe the shape. It was almost like,
yes.
Right. And it had these, it had light and sound, and it had this seating. So if you were at Burning Man this year, you most certainly saw it. The part that you may not have seen close up is that there's the seats sitting in front of it. Did you get close?
I did not see that.
Okay. No. So the seats, this is fascinating. There was like 10 of them, I want to say, and they look like spaceship seating or something, right? And you sit down in the seat and you put this plug onto your ear, and they have like a line of hard drives and computers connected. And I'm not super detailed aware of like what went into the technology. I know that it's like connected to what they're doing at the Deepak Chopra Center.
Wow.
And I'm planning on interviewing these guys soon, because I want to know what the fuck went into that. But it connects to your ear, and the idea is that Illumina glows brighter as your heartbeats sync up.
Oh my God. So
it starts working with sound and light, and I think everybody's heartbeats are probably working. And then the sound and light seems to kind of like draw you together, and you sit there for a while, and your breathing starts to sync up. And the thing keeps getting brighter and brighter. And finally, like, that's when it ends, when it gets the brightest, when all the heartbeats are synced up.
This is what I'm talking about. It's sculpture, it's metalwork, it's LED, it's programming, it's psychology.
And it's funny because we kept watching it and thinking, like, this has got to be scripted. There's no way it's actually, like, keeping track in that particular way.
Wow.
We'll find out soon. Wow. But I kept looking at their setup, and I didn't get a chance to talk to them in a lot of detail, but they had like all these computers, and is that part of the show? I don't know.
Along the lines of everything being lit up in Blinky, I talked to someone midweek it was their first night there, and I ran into him at the Pink Party at Walter, and it was first time I'd ever made it there, which is tragic that I hadn't been to the Pink Party yet, but it was incredible. I had so much fun. But this woman was like, it was her first night, and she's like, I didn't realize it would be just so much like a rave. And I was like, oh, you know what? You need to be more disciplined. Yeah. You followed the loud music and the bright lights.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you're going to find your way to a rave.
Yes.
If you can be a little bit more disciplined and steer away from the siren song of the most overt, loud, and blinky stuff, you're going to see the magic.
Yeah. Go walk around some dark street.
Exactly. Get off the S1I. Get into Deep Playa, and it's but it was this cool illustration of like, oh right, I could see how if you let yourself go to the lowest common denominator, all you would see was the most overt, loud stuff.
Right. Yeah, every year you go, you learn to look past the blinky lights a little bit more.
Yeah.
You know, it is almost like part of the human experience. Like as a teenager, you're like, big loud noises, big things. Right. You know, and as you get older, you're like, I wonder what's on this dark street. Right. You make a left turn. I ended up at this like tiny little camp called Spank of America. And they have a Spank of America ATM machine set up there with like running video footage of spankings from old movies.
No way.
And they have like this computer spanking machine. It's just like in the middle of like a quiet street. You know, end up hanging out with them, having a drink, chatting a little bit. It was really great. It's those little experiences.
You know, I think about, so there's so much I missed this year. I spent so much time hosting at camp, and as I so love being able to appreciate the videos and pictures of other people, all this art that I didn't see, and it's just this reminder of how, from the most grand to the most subtle, it's so inspiring to see how people express themselves.
Right. What was the art piece that stood out to you the most this year?
I mean, it's an easy target, but the tree of Tenere.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Tenere.
Tenere. I mean, that from far away, I'm like, is that as beautiful as it looks like?
Yeah.
You know, and I would get close, and not only was, you know, the intricacies and the small details. I read that the entire trunk was hand carved.
Yeah.
You know, and then what I also
15,000 LEDs, 45,000 leaves,
and then as you would see conversations and friendships and mini communities form around it, just like an ecosystem in nature.
Right.
You know, and just to I found it to be, and then they had the Rites of Spring or whatever.
The Rite of Spring, the ballet.
The whole ballet with live.
Yeah.
Like,
did you make it to that?
I only saw the video afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, it was tough. And once you got there, it was fucking huge, you know, impressive to get into.
But that's to me, that was this really beautiful illustration of the microcosm of Burning Man. It was many people's expressions in all different directions coming together to something that no one person could create, no one person could imagine.
Right.
And then inspiring all the people that were there. I mean, I feel silly putting it into words because it was incredible.
Oh no, you genuinely can. The Flying Lotus Girls piece also was one of my favorites. So this one was a structure up on a pole, and it had these multiple different cubes in it. So it's a very symmetric structure. So it was this big, huge thing. It had fire shooting out of it, right? Then they had a smaller version of it that you could walk up to and move with your hands, and it would move the larger structure. And it moved around. And at first you're looking at it and you're like, am I tripping? Wait, did I eat mushrooms? No, I didn't eat mushrooms. Like, it's got that kind of movement to it.
Wow.
And yeah, that one was another one that was just phenomenal.
There was so much, and then there was the I'm glad you got the names of one. There was the woman in the,
I was looking for the name of that woman. Yeah. That everybody was talking about that one.
The detail of
right.
It's so good. And then there was the probe one. That was right. Did you see that one? That was it was a huge, like a tripod that was supposed to be a probe from another planet that was doing, and you could send messages back to the home planet that it came from. But it was amazing. Huge and intricate and just like.
Oh my God. We could do another 5-hour show just on the art pieces.
Yeah, it would be 5 hours of, did you see that? Did you see that? It was blinking, it was pretty.
The last one that I had made a note of that was interesting it was called Bloom by Peter Hazel. That was the, what is it, a jellyfish?
Oh.
Yeah, right there at 6 o'clock.
Right in center camp or center camp?
Yeah, right there at 6 o'clock. I don't know if was it the same artist team that did the whales last year?
I don't think so. I think the whale team, the pier, brought out the pier this year.
Oh, right. Right. Yeah, because the whales, the whale and the calf whale, they're in Reno now.
Right.
On our way to the burn, we ended up stopping there for a minute. We're like, oh shit.
So cool.
And they're a permanent installation.
But I had the same thought because similar, like use of glass and metal and but I could be wrong, but my impression was that the pier group brought the pier out this year and was very involved with what they've been doing in Reno, setting up the whale.
Right. I mean, the last thing is that I have notes for is Bikegate 2017.
Yeah.
Because everybody's noting there's so much conversation happening in social media about the 5,000 bikes that people had left that they've had to collect. I mean, I don't know enough about the background on this. Do you have any information on this?
My couple thoughts are, one is that this is a problematic thing that we should continue to address as a community. We should also continue to address bike theft.
Yeah.
We should also continue to educate people on the importance of not parking bikes on the Esplanade. I think that there's a whole, like, a lot of people don't realize that how dangerous that is for, it's just kind of like when you throw in, if somebody throws trash into a porta potty, that messing with the flow of the system can jeopardize the event.
Right.
In the same way that messing with the flow of the streets can, if we block emergency services, and a lot of the big camps deal with a lot of, with ranger pressure to deal with bikes. So I think that there's a whole kind of realm of bike education and leave no trace that is one of those rough edges that the community just keeps needing to work on.
Right.
I've also read things where some of the pictures being shown are not showing the things that people say they are.
Right.
I'm not saying that tons of bikes didn't get left. I'm sure that has happened. But I also know there was a huge lot as I was leaving of people collecting bikes to give away.
Yeah, because the photos that I'd seen, if I hadn't read captions that were describing that, I would have assumed that it was the bike donation bins.
Yeah, I mean, I would,
because there's a couple of different places to donate your bike on your way out, and then the bikes. I don't know if all of the programs are the same. I know that there is a program where they donate bikes to the towns that are on the way to the burn from California and from various states, where they donate the bikes to like kids in those towns and donate it to those schools. So there's a couple of programs out there.
So I think we should keep being open to this, but we should also be careful to not let this be one of those knee-jerk reaction places. Absolutely. Like, no feathers! Yeah. Like, yes, you're right. We should leave no trace. We should not bring out old boas. We should not attack someone that has a feather in their outfit that they have been very conscious about. We should not immediately assume that everyone is leaving their bikes. We should go, oh, is this an area that we can be better at?
Absolutely.
Let's educate each other. Let's get better and avoid the temptation to make things into black and white issues.
Yeah. Conversation above litigation, if you will.
Because as we were talking about earlier, when you go into a situation as a potential for learning and problem solving, then both sides can get to the other side feeling like we're making progress.
Right.
Instead of creating a dialogue where one person is being attacked and defending and saying, screw you, and we have a temptation at Burners, because we care so much, because we find this to be our sacred radical ritual place, that anything that jeopardizes it or anything that feels like it is not respectful of what we consider to be so sacred, it's easy to come out swinging.
Yeah. There were bugs on Playa this year. Did you see bugs? I saw a lot of bugs.
Like praying mantis and stuff?
Like different kinds of bugs. I killed the most terrifying looking spider inside of my tent.
What?
Yeah. Stood there and I might have held in a
Was it a recording device as well?
Entirely possible. What did I do that night? But it might have just been the heat. Who knows? I was having heat stroke and seeing things. But cool. No, it was. I want to ask a last thing. For me, the burn is every burn that I've gone to has had a theme for me, something that's come out of it, and not necessarily the theme of the burn itself, but some sort of a lesson that I got out of it. And mind you, it's only been a couple of weeks. Yeah. Usually a lot of these things will reveal themselves over time. For me, this year was, it gave me a lot of professional clarity on about like what I want to do next with, this show, and what I want to do next with my own professional works, projects, whatever things that I'm working on next. I wonder if you had any big themes that came out of it this year for you. What was a big epiphany?
Yeah, a big theme for me was in recognizing the intensity of fluctuations of life, meaning as you turn up the joy and the bliss, by nature of the human experience, you are going to turn up the intensity of the sorrow and the grief. Mm-hmm. We live hard, we lose things, we grieve, repeat. And I think that this burn was a powerful reminder of, as we get better at life, we don't reduce the amount of struggles. We make them more awesome we make them more intense, and life begins to be a more and more dramatic adventure, which is actually what we want.
Absolutely. Well said. Well, Halcyon, thank you so much. This has been really fucking awesome. I love
so
this.
Awesome. Love talking to you.
Regular tradition for us. I love when I have you on because like it doesn't feel like I'm like necessarily a guest. It's like a co-host.
I love it. I love talking to you.
I love it. Thanks so
Thanks
much
for having me. And to all burners, I love you too.
I'm gonna second that one as well.
All right, please give us a like on Facebook and join the group. I'd love to see some more discussions happening there. I am seeing people posting a little bit more than they used to, which is awesome. A little more social media interaction from you introverted podcast listeners would be awesome, so we can get this all out there. And leave us a review on iTunes or on whatever podcasting platform you're on. It helps to get the show more visible so more of our tribe can be a part of this conversation. All the links are over at burnerpodcast.com. You can connect with me on all of these social medias at Mr. Arash. That's MRARASH. I am most active on Facebook and Instagram and on Snapchat, by the way. You can find me on Snapchat at Mr. Arash. I basically treat that one as my personal video diary. It's like a little reality show of my life, if that's at all interesting to you. But you can tweet me and stuff as well. Anyway, find me, Mr. Arash, MRARASH. Burner Podcast is released on the first and third Wednesday of the month and is available on Stitcher, iTunes, Spreaker, iHeart Radio, TuneIn Radio, among others. The show is not hard to find. The Burner Podcast team includes, but is not limited to, our associate producer, Tori Massey, network music editor, Najee Sarnow, executive producer, Meg King, special projects manager, Paul Ramiro Martinez has done a lot of work with the show. There's a lot of people that have contributed to getting the show to where it is, and I wanted to I want all of them to know that I'm always very grateful for them. And we thank you, dear listeners, for all of your support. You guys are all beautiful and amazing. Our opening music, America's Horse with No Name Remix, is produced by Joman. Check out his music over at soundcloud.com/DJ Joman. So stay tuned for Sonya Sophia right after this show, but I'm out of here. So until next time, love and light and other crap. Good night.
Hi loves, this video is to help you deal with the post-burn blues, to help you decompress and deal with the culture shock of coming back home from being in an epic space of total love, creativity, and freedom, and finding yourself here. Now somehow you managed to pack up everything and leave no trace. You made it through Exodus alive, having danced your last dance, shared your last sip, and found yourself back in default reality. And now, the life you left behind oh so long ago is waiting for you. Your job, your bills, your kids, your cat, your projects, your roommates, and your laundry. Suddenly life no longer feels like a never-ending grand, sexy adventure with your friends, right? How was it? People ask, how was Burning Man? It was good. Best burn ever, you say. Well, how can you describe what just happened? The beauty, the chaos, the meltdowns, and the miracles. How are you ever going to integrate all of this and quit comparing that reality to this one? You're going to pull out the emotional survival tool of EFT, emotional freedom techniques, and get your tap on. Let's do a mini tap on this right now so you can remember how to bring your Burning Man mojo back into default reality with you. What negative feelings have come up for you since returning from Burning Man? And what are you still trying to process about what happened at Burning Man? Let's look at some of those negative feelings first, and then we'll circle back around in a few minutes to deal with at least one of those big experiences that you're still trying to wrap your brain around. Just follow along with me. Now, before we get going, it's only fair to warn you that there may be some off-gassing of stored stress in your nervous system, which could come out in a variety of ways, including yawning, tingling, weird physical sensations, burping, laughing, tears, etc. So just keep tapping and we'll get you through this together. Your body knows how to do this, given the opportunity. Trust it. So first, we're going to acknowledge the negative feelings that have come up since you've returned. Dirt's just going to pick one or two at a time and go from there. Massaging the front of the chest, big deep breath, tuning in to the biggest bummer about being back. Here we go. Even though it's depressing coming back from Burning Man because I'm open to loving and accepting myself. And tapping the eyebrow. It's depressing. Tap the temples. Because I see what? Tap the cheeks. And that makes me feel how? Sad? Tired? Exhausted? Angry? Let it out. Big deep breath. Tapping under the nose. I see. Say it again. What are you noticing? And tapping under the lips. And all of that makes me really sad. Big deep breath. Tap the chest. I'm missing my friends and my freedom. Tapping the front of the ribs. Big deep breath. Good. Tuning into that sensation of really missing being there. Now tapping the side of the ribs. Big deep breath. It's really hard coming back home after such a big experience. Tapping the inside of the wrist. Part of me feels, fill in the blank, how do you feel? Tapping the side of the thumb right here at the edge of the thumbnail. Tuning into that negative feeling one more time without judging it or trying to change it. Tapping the index finger. I'm releasing the sadness, the stress, and the depression that comes with coming home. Tap the middle finger. It's safe for me to process my resistance to default reality. Tap the bottom of your fourth finger. I have a lot of resistance to the way the world is. I have a lot of resistance to the way the world is. Tap the little finger. I have a lot of resistance to what I'm seeing. Tap the side of the hand. I wish it could all be like Burning Man. And tapping the top of the head, the side of the head, and the back of the head. Breathe and make some noise. Tapping the eyebrows one more time. Coming home. Tap the temples. Decompressing. Tap the cheeks. I don't want to come home. Tap under the nose. I don't want to come home and no one can make me. Tapping under the lips. I want to live like that forever. Big deep breath. Good. So let's check in. How are you feeling now? Did that take the edge off and help you land a little bit? Remember that you can always pause this, rewind it, and do that piece for a couple more minutes. So now we're going to process at least one big thing that happened to you at the burn this year. And again, you can go back and do this piece again for as many big experiences as you had. Even though this happened, think about that or say it out loud. And I'm still trying to grapple with what that meant. I'm open to loving and accepting myself. This happened. Say what it is. Tap your temples and breathe. I'm still trying to process it. Tap your cheeks. It brings up so much for me. Part of me still feels shocked. Tap under the nose. I wasn't expecting that. Big breath. Part of me still feels what? Do you feel heartbroken? Do you feel lost, confused, thrilled? Tapping the chest. Part of me still feels good. Tapping the front of the ribs. I'm open to loving and accepting myself, even if I'm still trying to process this event that happened at Burning Man. Tapping the side of the ribs. This event. Think about it again. Say what it is. And inside of the wrist. I'm allowing my body to integrate this experience. Tap the side of the thumb. To integrate it. To accept it for now. Big deep breath. Tap the index finger. It's okay for me to process this now. Tap the middle finger. I'm allowing myself to catch back up with myself. Tap the bottom of the fourth finger to bring all of me back so I can have that energy here where my body is. Big deep breath. Good. Tap your little finger, integrating what happened at Burning Man. Tapping the side of your hand. Tuning into that event now and see if it feels a little bit easier to think about. I know that you can't process everything in one little video, so I spent several years creating an ongoing emotional support system for you to not only process your pre, during, and post-playa experiences, but to help you process everything else that life sends your way. Did you know that there are burners all over the world tapping together every week in our online meetup? It's called the World Tapping Circle. It's 100% burner built and broadcasted. And I'm inviting you to join us each Monday, or you can catch the replay video. Now imagine having a weekly tapping session to help you process your past, live in the present, and build your future more brightly. You have the privacy you need to go deep and the love you need to stay strong. I hope to see you in the circle soon, where we'll be getting down to the nitty-gritty of creating an epic life together. Please share this video with people you love, because we all need to decompress once in a while. Da-na-na-na-na-na, na-na-na-na-na, na-na-na-na-na,